Hello and welcome to a mostly Mopar family. Sorry, it's been a pretty slow pace lately with summer, kids, full-time work. It's been a lot to juggle, but I'm hoping to get onto a better pace and make a few more videos for you. Today, we're going to talk about why my username is a mostly Mopar family. I love my Mopar products, especially the B&E bodies, and that is the majority of what I own. But I've always had a real soft spot for the 65 to 68 Mustang fastbacks. As a kid, my first car was a 1966 Mustang Coupe, and I desperately wanted a fastback, but this is the late 90s. My budget was like $4,000 to $5,000. It's what I'd saved from mowing lawns, having a paper route, doing all those kind of jobs, and there were no fastbacks to be found for $4,000 to $5,000, especially that I could drive. So I gave up. I learned a lot of really tough and hard lessons with that coupe, lost money in a big way, and I repainted it, rebuilt the engine, went through the brakes, reupholstered the seats, and could not get my money out of it. But sold the car, learned some really good lessons, and for the last 25 years, I've really wanted a Mustang fastback. So over the last maybe 3 years, I've been looking, and man, most of this stuff is so ragged out. But about 18 months ago, I came across this Mustang. It wasn't advertised. A guy answered my ad and said, hey, I've got one. It's all in pieces in my garage, but I want to sell it. It's been sitting there for a long time. The Mustang did not look like this. It was completely blown apart. Fenders, doors, hood, front and rear valances all off the car and packed away in storage. It was a total basket case. So my dad, one of my daughters, and I, we cannonballed down to Central Texas, picked the car up. I had to kind of hang it all back together as we were there, just so I could really transport it well and not lose stuff on the way home. My intent was to modify, rebuild this thing, get it on the road with a more modern fuel-injected engine. But I came across a really cool, more complete, running, driving 1966 Mustang Fastback GT. It's teal. My kids loved it. Bottom line is, the teal one's gonna stay, this one's gonna go. I'm gonna hit the easy button and just keep the one that's a running and driving car, because I have so many projects and none of them run. The original door tag is still in place, and it decodes as a 289 two-barrel car, automatic in Ember Glow. The interior was Ember Glow and parchment. Nothing fancy on the rear ratio. It was like a 280 gear ratio, if I remember right, with standard, it was non-limited slip, but C4 automatic, but kind of a cool combo. The VIN number on the door tag matches the stamp that's on the driver's side inner fender. The inner fenders are remarkably solid. Usually these inner fenders pucker up and blister, especially right here where these three pieces of sheet metal come together. But these inner fenders are really, really very nice compared to some of the cars that I've bought. Firewall really looks to be in excellent shape. Again, we saw some of the lower toe board areas that need replaced, but the front frame rails, super solid. A few holes were cut in the shock towers to get to bolts. I'm not sure why they did that. It was a lazy way, of course, but overall, this thing is an outstanding project. So I'm going to show you what it used to look like. This thing was a C-code 289 automatic, and it's dolled up to look like a GT350. So it is a tribute, a clone. I have a lot of the parts for this car. I do not have an engine for it. It was, again, a 289 two-barrel car, so nothing super fancy. But as far as quarter panels go, you know, this paint, I don't know how old this paint is. I'm guessing at least 20 years old. It's in pretty poor shape, pretty oxidized, but lower quarter panels, really not that terrible. Wheelhouses, also not that terrible, with it being a Texas car. You know, I'm kind of intrigued by how it did rust. The quarter panels are pretty decent. The doors, not so much. The rockers, also really pretty good. But, and this door is the good one, as usual, they rust in that lower forward corner. Rest of the driver's side door really looks pretty good. Fender, same thing. a few spots down there that need to be cut out and replaced. You can see some putty or some filler cracking behind that black paint, but relatively straight. Frame rails up front, really, really solid, quite nice to work with. The driver's side front frame rail and cap, really, really good. You can see that toe board needs some work, but the rail itself, really nice. Gotta love Texas cars, don't you? This thing's got some cheesy hood scoop that's non-functional that's on it, and it's cracking out. It needs to go. The fender, pretty decent on this side. Where it did get chipped through, it's not showing a ton of filler, but the top certainly does have quite a bit of filler. It was skim coated as well. I'm sure it wasn't prepped well before it was painted or before the filler was applied. Again, another look at this front right frame rail. Really, really solid. Something that's pretty fun to find. This car had been off the road for quite a while, but being a Texas car, it's really, really solid. This door is the one that's really not in that great of shape. It's pretty rusty behind that stripe, front and rear corners. Obviously some nice filler showing through there. Quarter panel, you can see it's got the replica scoops there. They're non-functional. The right quarter panel, again, has some rust in the lower quarter, but reasonably straight. Not sure what's underneath the paint. I'm sure there's more filler to be found. These things all seem to be fairly full of filler at this point. Again, that glass is all present in the doors, and I have the rear Lexan windows. Got the nice little GT350 replica badge, fuel cap. The deck lid, really pretty rough. It just needs to be replaced. That's not even worth messing with. Rear valance with the dual exhaust cutouts looks pretty good. Certainly usable again. This is the passenger side rear frame rail, and you can see that it is in really good shape from front all the way to the rear cross member where it ties in. The driver's side frame rail is just as solid as the passenger side. The trunk floor is definitely going to need replaced. The skin itself is broken through in quite a few spots, but as you saw from below, the frame rails are good, so a new trunk floor could go in place and just weld up to those existing rear frame rails. The driver's side inner quarter panel doesn't have any really ugly seams or any real signs of super bad rust where it joins up against the outer wheel tub. Same thing with the passenger side. This looks to be the original undercoating, and again, no seams or sections or flanged in areas. So I think you could get away with a lower skin on both sides. The previous owner trimmed out part of the passenger side floor pan and toe board. You can see the new pans are sitting in place. They need final trim before they're welded in, but the rest of the floor pans really not too bad. I'm sure you've seen much, much worse. And a view of the rear floor pans from the other side. Although the floors are really dirty, for a 50-something-year-old car, they're really quite solid. You saw them from below, and I showed you this patch panel that's already been set in place and trimmed. It's dirty, it's been rained on. Tunnel's in good shape. Floor pans on the driver's side are pretty good, except for that toe area in the forward section, so another couple patches will be needed there, but overall the floors are really, again, quite good. The dash pad itself is gone. Instrument cluster is there, but a previous owner hacked up the wiring harness, so it's definitely going to need replaced. Radio's missing. Steering column's there. The front seats are not the originals, but are good workable cores. The rear seat's in good shape. Side panels are there. And some of the odds and ends trim pieces are in the back seat. A few other odds and ends are in the trunk. Headlight buckets, radiator core, heater box, and things like that. The window channel on this windshield is really quite good. The roof, not so much. Again, skim coated, probably wasn't prepped well because all that filler is peeling off. It's a pretty thin coat, but it's over the whole roof. But this car really has some pretty decent bones. We'll show you the rear frame rails here in just a little bit. Something that would be a really cool project. And I intended to tackle this one if it wasn't for the fact that I found the teal 66 GT fastback. So we'll show you that one in another video. On to the detailer's place. I dropped the Mustang off at Derek's house a few weeks ago and we're going to pick it up. I've got really high expectations. Derek always does a really nice job and I'm excited to see how that dull, oxidized old paint really shined up. Like Derek always does, he shined it up really nice. This thing's still on the rough side. That roof, pretty rough. Hood, pretty rough. But hey, what was here really shined up quite nicely. And it's really gonna help because I plan to get it hung back together, kind of throw all the parts on it, and get ready to sell it. Since I bought the turquoise 1966, I don't have a need for a second 66, and I'm gonna hit the easy button, just keep the turquoise one, and sell this project on. I will say this though, that paint job, that scheme is iconic. I wish it was in a little bit better shape, but hey, what do? It's still cool to find something, and as a bonus, my detail guy Derek's also working with this really cool Trans Am in the same colors. Kind of a cool pair to be seen together. But let's load this thing up. It looks so much better. I hung a few more pieces on it to make it look a little bit more complete. Let's take a walk around and you can see the finished product.